Hi, I'm Carolina. I'm a graduate student in the mechanical engineering department at MIT in my third year, and I work in the biomechatronics group with Hugh. The greatest obstacle I see to human flourishing at MIT, I think, is disenchantment or disillusionment. And I know that's a broad category, so I'll break it down into more tangible examples. But I think whether you're a student or even professor or faculty, you come to MIT with very big aspirations and big expectations. That's universally true just because of the reputation of what MIT is. And in reality, it's going to be very difficult for the MIT to live up to the expectations that you've come in with. So I think for a professor, this could look like coming in with this idea of this is the research I'm going to do, and then you end up spending so much time fighting for funding and fighting to justify what you're even working on instead of just making the progress that you thought you could make. Or for students, this looks a lot of different ways. I think for grad students, it's similar, working towards something and then losing sight of how that path might even play out and just being really stuck in a loop. And then for undergrads, I think it can be a mix of different things. A lot of people come to MIT thinking that this is where they're really going to break into making a world-changing technology. And then the reality is, because of the way that things kind of get funneled, you end up working for a company because they offered a really good salary, but in the back of your head, you abandon the thing you were passionate about back in freshman year. And so I meet a lot of students who are sort of yeah, I'm running this race to reach a goal that I wasn't even sure I was gonna have as my goal when I came in. And I think people end up feeling really disillusioned too. I was supposed to do XYZ here at MIT, and I ended up doing this totally different combination of things that wasn't actually what I was really passionate about. And I think it can happen for a lot of different reasons. I think there's just an idea of success and goals that we've been told we kind of have to chase after, whether that's if you work for this company, that's making it, or if you're working at this lab, that's the definition of success. But then those things are kind of really far removed from our own flourishing, or our picture of what actually brings about flourishing. And when you sort of end up in that camp, you realize, you just kind of feel disenchanted to the entire idea of MIT, so. I definitely see God at work. I'll say there's two ways. One, I think, is the MIT community is a really beautiful example of community. And I would say this is true not exclusively to the Christian community at MIT, but just in general. MIT, especially in undergrads, really emphasize a collaborative nature. And I think it's really nice that I see when I was an undergrad, I saw a lot of examples of students sacrificing their time and their energy, even when they totally didn't have to, when there was no benefit to them, to help other students complete assignments or make it through a class or make it through a project. And there were just really tangible examples of sacrifice from students to other students that I really feel reflected God's sacrifice for us. Even if those students didn't attribute that to God, I think that was an extension of the compassion that God has for us. So that's one example. And then I think the other example is kind of to counter some of that disenchantment. I think the wisdom of God really enables a lot of the breakthroughs that I see here at MIT technology-wise. So I think for example, my lab was the biomechatronics group, and we work on prosthetics. And it's been really amazing just seeing how the technologies that some people in the lab have developed enable just the restoration of human movement and just the restoration of health. And it's really beautiful to see someone be able to do squats again or kick a ball when they lost their knee 10 years ago. And I think that God is absolutely at work in that, and every single breakthrough that brings about human flourishing and restoration of life and ability. And even if, again, not every researcher in the lab is recognizing that and recognizing God as the source of that wisdom, but I absolutely believe that God is the source of all of those breakthroughs. And so I think this is happening at lots of labs at MIT, and that is the thing that keeps me going when sometimes it feels easy to get stuck in am I actually making progress, or is society actually making progress towards human flourishing? I think I see lots of little examples of God doing that here at MIT.